Imagine, imagine if the challenges that you're carrying right now, the pressures, the uncertainty, the constant context switching, and no more than this week during Davos, imagine that things could feel lighter simply because you had the space to think more clearly. Imagine if one good question could unlock a solution to something that you've been circling around for a long time. And imagine if the strengths that are within inside you that have always been present but not fully activated, imagine that you could activate them, that they would help you lead with confidence, with clarity, with momentum to move forwards. That's the power of coaching. It's not just a nice idea. It's the data is really, really compelling. Today, I'm exploring what coaching means and the experiences of some engineers that I've had the honour and privilege to help grow and move forwards in their careers. But why do engineers often think that it's not for them? People I've asked say, well, we're problem solvers. Engineers solve problems. We've been doing it all our lives. That's who we are. So my career, just another problem. Others say, too expensive. I've got so much to spend my money on at the moment. I'm at the beginning of my career, in the middle of my career. I need to invest in my family. I need to pay off for my house. I need to be able to go and enjoy the money that I can whilst I can. No one else that they know has admitted to having a coach. But as well as the expense, there's that uncertainty about the return on investment. And yet, so many of the professional engineering institutions offer coaching to their members. They also offer mentoring, which quite often is a pro bono activity, free by the person who's doing the mentoring, and maybe for a small charge for those who are receiving mentoring. Sometimes we can find ourselves in a mentor-coach relationship where there's a little bit more direction, a little bit more experience being fed forward. So a mentor tends to be someone who's worked in your sector or your industry, somebody that you perhaps look up to, who can connect you with your own network and broaden your sort of network across your sector. But hearing the pushback from engineers that I've worked with, I want to make sure that we can peel back the layers and explore the benefits and open people's eyes to what coaching can offer you and how it can help you shift from being stuck to unstuck, help you shift from being technically competent to technically confident and also personally confident. We started offering group coaching as well during lockdown, and the power of it was really remarkable. We help people to build their networks, build relationships with other people in similar related spaces. We use Clifton Strengths as a primary tool for it, and it helped people to understand both through the conversations they were having, but in the observations of how others were addressing or approaching challenges. It helped people to see how they could be better. It was great for growing self-awareness, building self-confidence, and helping people have strategies to be their best. The reality is that from the research is that for every dollar that companies invest in coaching, they're seeing a 5 to 7 times impact from the people who've taken part in it, which is why companies support people to have a coach. Just ask. The other benefit is that people see people's performance is 51% greater than their peers who've not had a coach. People see a 70% increase in their workplace performance, and that correlates with productivity and profitability. There's a lot of research on the Gallup website supporting this direct relationship. And 99% of those people who've been in a coaching relationship say that they're satisfied with it. And 96% would choose to do it again. It's something that they have really valued and really enjoyed. Today isn't about coaching theory. It's simply about possibility. It's about what becomes achievable when you stop trying to solve everything all at once, alone, in one go. And you start giving yourself access to clarity, confidence, and a thinking partner whose only agenda in participating in this activity is in your growth, in you helping you become better at what you do. So let's uncover what coaching can unlock for you. I'm always fascinated by the few numbers of coaches that I cross paths with who've chosen coaching. Because we're familiar with coaching in so many aspects of our lives, but primarily within that sport or team environment. We see big football teams having coaches. We have people who run have a running coach. Powerlifters have a coach. We have physical trainers that become more and more common to help people stay on track, help people notice the points at which they could improve by shifting or tweaking their technique, helping have strategies for improving their nutrition. And actually, that's what we're doing. We're trying to give you that holistic piece of information to help you be your best. The purpose of coaching, let's look at it, let's drill down, is about closing the gap between potential and performance. So engineers are indeed problem solvers, and they have at their disposal a huge range of tools and strategies. The chartership process in itself calls for investing in who you are, helping you grow and develop your communication skills, your team skills, your leadership skills. It introduces people through professional development to a whole range of skills and strategies. But it isn't, is it? Drilling that down into helping you understand how you respond in any given moment, creating that space for that self-reflection, helping you think things through, helping consider from the other side of the coin, the person that you're interacting with. But you don't have to figure out how to run your career on your own. In fact, probably shouldn't. So many great engineers and engineering leaders do believe that they need to be on their own, but actually, maybe it's not the best route. They are smart, they are capable people, they're problem solvers, and they think they should be able to figure things out. But the truth is that the way we solve engineering problems isn't necessarily the way to solve personal problems. The thing is that many of the strategies that we have for many people, many engineers absolutely are very self-aware and can think things through. But that isn't the case for everybody. It reminds me of how I used to do it early in my career. So what happens when smart people get stuck? The concrete boot analogy, obviously if these guys had stood in the concrete for a bit longer, I was working in industry and I was sitting at my desk, and my strategy, I am an analytical thinker. My strategy was to use my blotter on my desk and to lift up the corner at the end of the day when I was feeling a bit frustrated and doodle, draw models, think things through. And indeed, I got to the point where I was going into work and trudging up the stairs step by step. I felt like I had concrete boots on every single morning. And that thinking space on my blotter enabled me to pull apart aspects of my life. What was it that was frustrating me? Who was frustrating me? Why weren't things working? Why wasn't this fabulous job that I had with lots of lovely travel, meeting some amazing, interesting people globally? Why was that not enough? Why was I frustrated? And thinking it through helped me. I'm sure I would have been easier and quicker with a coach, and I might still have stayed in that company. But not everybody has those reference spaces and frameworks to use to take that thinking. So the problem is that we're so often as individuals so invested in the problem that when we get frustrated, anxious, terrified, can't see a way out, we're so invested in the problem that our amygdala, the chimp in our brain, as Tom Peters, no relation, says, is that the amygdala, the chimp, takes over and we cycle round and round and round and round again and again in our heads about what could have been, what we should have said. So when the challenge is about our own career or even our life, it can be really hard to be objective. We're caught up in the emotions and mindsets, the internal conflicts, and it becomes this kind of tangled web. So what can we do about it? How can we dig deep to fix it? And indeed, can we? So the primary challenges that engineers face are about, the first one I've identified from my work is about identity confidence, helping engineers shift from being a really good engineer where they can own their potential into being a great engineer, somebody who is going from that technical competence to technically confident and personally confident. And when you have that confidence, your feet are planted, your shoulders go back, you own who you are because you have a certainty, an air about you, the things that you can do. Your potential and your power is limitless. Let me bring this to life with someone that I worked with who was a brilliant early career bridge engineer. She was really, really ambitious and she had so much to do and she was doing so much within work, but also out of work. And in reality, she was stuck, not because of her ability, but because she was struggling to capture her learning and her articulate her impact and provide evidence of her successes in a way that did justice to who she truly was. She was producing her portfolio to get her registration, and it felt like a huge mountain to climb just at that moment in her mid-20s when she was wanting to really climb the career ladder and push forwards as fast as she possibly could. She was at that moment also trying to champion causes for women in engineering, champion other people that she crossed paths with. She wanted to gain visibility for the work that she was doing. But it felt like a mountain that she couldn't climb. It was so huge. She was having to create this portfolio to look at the problems she was solving, how she'd shown impact, how she was demonstrating her capability as a really good engineer, how she was managing relationships with colleagues and clients. And then she'd go home and try and write about it. And it was truly hard. So we worked through it. We explored how engineers succeed. We uncovered her Clifton strengths and we helped to identify the patterns of the way that she worked. We helped her gain confidence from seeing what she'd achieved and how she'd gone about doing it. We reignited what it was that lit her up about specific people, about meetings, about her contribution, about finished projects. And that really was the love of problems, about the curiosity of the different ways to go about doing it and coming up with solutions for really challenging things. We helped her to understand the unique strengths that she brought to every single project. We also, in the analysis of the projects that she was working on and her previous projects, looked at the friction that was appearing in a couple of relationships. The places where things ran smoothly and the ones where they didn't. And then what was the learning from those projects and people when things weren't running smoothly? What did she want from that situation? And why was it not working? So that it was not about her failing as an individual, but it was really about mapping out the different expectations of people on the project. Did they think about the micro detail? Were they big picture thinkers? And likewise with the clients, what were the things that they brought into a meeting? What did they need from her in explaining the problems and the challenges? And it was also around owning her voice and her value. And that, I think, was part of the biggest shift, helping her to grow in confidence, helping her to have a voice to talk about who she was with authenticity. She could be proud of who she was and what she brought. And she learnt to do that in a way without being overly boastful. It was a calm authority and clarity that she brought to that description of what she thought needed to be done in that meeting. And the outcome of this was that she became the youngest chartered person in her institution. So delighted and super proud to being able to help her achieve that success so early in her career. So how can you work with Catalytic? How can we help you shift from competence to confidence? Well, we do work with people in team workshops, and we do organisational growth and development, leadership, management, etc. Be about building inclusive workspaces where workforces are retained because people want to stay. We offer solo coaching, one-to-one coaching, which is hugely flexible, times to suit people. We can do short sessions, longer sessions, depending on the individual, depending on the time available. We help people to tackle strategies. We help provide feedback on some of the self-reflections that people have done, but not in that kind of, I'm going to remark your homework kind of way, of course. Help people go from being a fixed mindset, growth to growth mindset, and evolve and flower and blossom into a learning mindset. And we help people gain strengths, confidence, transforming talent into strengths that can be productively applied. Coaching packages are really flexible too, 3 to 6 sessions. And we also do this in the context of a pre-coaching onboarding survey, because we want people to see where they were when they started, because over a period of time of 3, 6 or 12 months, people forget where they were at the beginning. Where is their confidence? Where is their self-belief? Where is their well-being? And how can we help them build strategies to grow their well-being? And in between, of course, we have WhatsApp support so we can stay in touch. And that's a great way to send spontaneous things to read or things to think about. And of course, every session has its own summary of actions, the notes that we've talked about, things that have been agreed, commitments that have been made. But one of the things I really love participating in and leading is group coaching sessions, bringing people together who come from similar spaces. Now, sometimes these work within a research group or a team where people come together with like-minded people at a similar career time and space. People who we can help to develop their listening skills, their observation skills, gain some peer coaching habits that they can practice both within the session but also outside of the session. And we also encourage people to have a meet-up outside of the group itself. The benefit of group coaching is you can see the challenges that other people are experiencing, especially when it comes to the expectations with relationships. We can see the problems and challenges, whether it's a task-related one, a project-related one, strategy-related one, or it's about people and interactions. You can see and observe and help to explore solutions for it. But also, because we use Clifton Strengths, this helps people to understand and appreciate the diversity of people. Nobody has the same perspective. Nobody has the same set of unique strengths. and how those can hinder your performance and how they can help you to learn how to tweak your response in certain situations. So we're doing, for people who really are ready to start 2026 strong, we're offering some coaching, peer group coaching taster sessions. And in the chat, I will be putting the link to find that landing page, which hopefully I can find it in here. Okay, I will do it right at the end. It's bit.ly link. It is not working for me, so I will put that in the chat later on. And so these are really low priced for get a taste of what is it like to be involved in a peer coaching session. And people typically we will create a focus for the session with in agreement with everybody involved in the group, and that's likely to be something at this time of year, goal setting. How can I take goal setting to a new level so that it's something that works for me? Now, if people have used Clifton Strengths, that's a really obvious way to take this. But if it isn't, we can look at introducing a goal setting framework that's based around the way that people think, get stuff done and want to achieve, turning it into something that's really useful. So we're inviting you to share this with people too. This isn't something we want to keep hidden under our hats, as it were. So it's a bit.ly link, which is literally bit.ly/catalytic coaching. Take you straight to the landing page, and it'll be in the follow-up notes too. And so don't want to keep telling you the benefit, but this is a guy who's a senior mechanical engineer, and he came to us and said that he was operating at 120% and it was unsustainable. But the really disappointing thing for him was that he only felt that he was getting a 60% return on his effort. And what we helped him to do was really see some of the patterns in the work and the way that he was responding and understand how his Clifton strengths were dragging him down. In particular, for him, it was his responsibility that the way that he was doing things for other people before he got round to focusing on things for himself. How could he set boundaries? But he also had analytical as one of his top strengths, and that was pushing him to overthink data and information. And rather than going to people with some broad ideas of the numbers and graphs and statistics, he was just doing calculation after calculation after calculation. But not only that, he was alienating some of his more relationship-oriented colleagues by pushing them for more and more facts and information. He became this sort of driving force of questions. And he was barely giving people time to think and reflect that before he was asking more questions. So he became really, really overwhelming. And at the end, he said it felt like an engineer that was leading, not just reacting to things. And imagine if his push and drive with questions and his colleague, well, not his colleague, but this other person I want to talk to you about, how her strengths would have responded to this bombardment with questions. Aisha is a software engineering team lead, and she has intellection and deliberative, and she was really struggling in team meetings. She was technically brilliant, really good, loved her job, but she'd go to team meetings and find that she hadn't got a clue what was going on. People were making decisions seemingly to her on the fly, and we drilled down and determined that it was her intellection and deliberative. So intellection, she was hearing what people were talking about and her brain was cycling it round thinking about it. And she never got the time to think because the rest of the team, presumably their intellection was quite low and they just wanted to move things forward and get things done. And her deliberative really, really combined with her intellection to cause her to be the naysayer in the group, always asking about, but what if? And what would happen? And is that the right choice? What would be the risk? This might happen, this might happen. And her excited, forward-thinking, futuristic, strategic colleagues were like just stop fussing about it. Let's get it done and see what happens. So she found that she wasn't participating in meetings. And we practiced strategies for how to take space to feedback, how to communicate with people, with her line manager and the people chairing the meetings, that she needed that time and space to think. And she helped her meeting chair to come to her last when they went round the table for people's thoughts of what needed doing. And it really transformed it. Her director said to her, "You're showing up like the leader we knew you were." It's just really satisfying to see that happen. Love it. So another challenge about over that career confidence piece, a second challenge I think that really raises itself, that is really hard to deal with, especially in science and engineering spaces, is when there's a mismatch in that relationship, in the communication, but in expectations between people, or just simply a misunderstanding. I have those stories of my own. So this is a story of a doctoral researcher, and it really reminds me about why strengths, appreciation, and understanding matters so much in a relationship when it comes to enabling somebody to be their best, but enabling somebody to be able to even perform rather than being closed down. And this PhD student was, let me characterise this student for you, was 6'1", had pink hair, and wore shortish skirts, and big, long Doc Martin boots. She was an amazing woman, and I just used to feel the energy from her. She would arrive buzzing with energy and passion for her research, for her supervision meetings. And she would light up any conversation. She was overflowing with ideas. And the kind that most supervisors would just love to have a student so enthusiastic and passionate about her research. Except hers didn't. To him, she was too much. Have we heard that phrase anywhere before? She was too loud, too driven, too outcome focused. He was looking for quiet contemplation, slow, methodical progress, growth in expertise, in understanding of this field. He was looking for a studious PhD persona in his PhD student. And maybe before, he'd always managed to recruit somebody like that. So increasingly, her supervision meetings became more and more awkward. And it got to the point where he would say almost nothing. And she, guess what, would respond by filling the space, filling the silence with ideas, more stories of things that she had done, papers that she'd read. It became this sort of space where she was doing this scattergun of ideas and energy and excitement. But the more loud she became around it, internally, the more she spoke, the more she closed down, and then less he spoke, and the more she felt she had to fill the void. And this cycle really was just sapping her confidence and energy, and drained her joy for what she was doing. And she really didn't think that her place was in academia. So what did we do together? We reframed the situation, not as a personality clash per se, but we looked at it from her strengths, and we didn't know his strengths. He didn't want to do strengths, but we looked at it as a difference in strengths and communication style, and we looked at it as a systems challenge that she could then navigate. And once we reframed it as a challenge, she kind of got it. And we co-developed these strategies to help understand what he needed. So she learned to decode his silences and his expectations, but his silences were him thinking. He was reflecting on what she said, noodling it around internally. Intellection was the guess that I had of what he had. And what we were doing by doing that was we knew that her energetic, her self-assurance, her activator, her and strategic were strengths that really needed to explore and speak things out loud. So we gave her strategies to understand him. We also developed some tools to anticipate and structure the supervision. So very much strengths aligned, of course, what else? So that she could then prepare for her supervision meeting. So we thought through about what to prepare, what to lead with, when to pause, when to be quiet, and then when to ask him to think and reflect back to her. What did he think? What had he noticed? And for her to try and match his energy and pace without losing her own. And then from that, working with some other PhD students, I've created a planning for your supervisors meeting PDF, which we provide when we do workshops with PhD students. And then finally, the third one was about helping to create that a way that they could both show up to feel that they were authentic, and it was a relationship. There was give, there was take, and the things that she needed from him was this feedback. And what we were helping her do was to not dim her light, but actually just to, I like the phrase, direct it. So she really owned her Clifton strengths. And to, if you think of the graphic equalizer, or if you've seen, I won't go off into movies of rock bands, but it was really about helping her to tone down just a little bit, a couple of notches, some of her enthusiasm and natural joie de vivre. And what we ended up having or seeing was that we got these really effective supervision meetings where there was an exchange of information. By sending a short email with 3 bullet points, this is what I've been doing, this is what I've learned, this is what I'm excited about, what do you think about? She could flex it every time she went for a meeting. His response was, at last she's taking responsibility for a PhD. But ultimately, the atmosphere in her supervision meetings became much calmer, more productive, and respectful, both for her from him and him for her. And so she stopped being seen as being too much, which is just such a horrible phrase, isn't it? You're too much. And like my undergraduate project supervisor, Jan, we need more. You need more than enthusiasm to succeed. So she walked away from that. Our interaction with, she walked away with a skill set that's going to serve her far beyond her PhD. She's walked away with the skills to listen, but also anticipate and ask people what they need, but also to understand how others perceive her, not as too much, but as somebody who understands her energy and power and passion. She can now read a room and adapt to that room without shrinking and shying away from who she really is. She didn't dim her energy, she just directed it. Okay, so the third thing is this is a mid-career engineer, it's about creating career clarity. And this is a story about this brilliant, wonderful woman who was working in the oil and gas sector and was super effective. Again, somebody whose frustrations at work were pushing her to have a amazing extracurricular, if you like, life outside of work, both in her place of worship, but also in an online community as a visionary and energetic influencer for so many people. Fantastic, wonderful engineer. All this external success, but none of the internal fulfillment. So people who don't have that career clarity have perhaps not understood about that mismatch and think they have this out of work and in work persona. And the challenge is, how do you shift? Well, she had this amazingly strong career, really great CV, managing some really amazing projects with great confidence, delivering results. CV was fantastic. And that was on the outside, but she was frustrated, unfulfilled. She climbed this ladder and really it wasn't leaning against the right wall, if I can use that as an analogy. So she was pouring herself into this voluntary space, but that wasn't helping her career so much. So we used her Clifton Strengths as an anchor around who it was that she was and helped her see how she could be more of who she could be. And we rebuilt her professional career confidence and self-belief such that she understood where her leadership style was going to be, that her communication was an asset to who she was, and she could use that to transform and resell herself to the sector that she wanted to do. So she realised that she really didn't need to start from scratch. This is so important. People who are dissatisfied in one space think they need to shift completely and start again. I did it myself. I was working in industry and I was frustrated, disillusioned, wearing concrete boots. Did I need to start again? No, I found a role in public sector commercialising technology. So I helped her to change the story that she was telling. And when she then started reaching out to the employers in the medical technology sector that she really, really wanted to work in, they really liked her. She was clear, she was confident, and she was super capable. And that's where she is now. And that's just phenomenal because she then has that power. And it's about understanding your strengths, the career that you want, and it can be yours and not just that hypothetical space. Making it happen. Coaching isn't just for people who are struggling. It's for people who have that intensity and are driven and passionate, but just need a little bit of help in translating who they are and who they could really be. Those 3 case studies are from women in different sectors at different career stages. But the pattern is essentially the same. They had the inner talent and the strengths and the capability. They had the capacity, but they didn't really have the clarity around what it was or the confidence and strategies to transform that into reality for them. And that is what I believe momentum coaching really unlocks for people. It gives them those connections aside from being on their own. And I think that those who can afford it can go for the one-to-one coaching. And we do offer that outside of Momentum. A lot of people who join in Momentum group coaching take up the opportunity to have some one-to-one coaching sessions outside from it. So why would you choose a coach? You know, all the greatest athletes across the world have a coach. Why do they do that? And why not the best engineers? You don't need to do it all alone, and you shouldn't have to. So if you lack a bit of clarity, if you're stuck, if you need to change your mental habits and get out of that spaghetti soup that's existing in your head, then think about whether coaching is right for you. What is next for you career-wise? How can you get promoted? What happens if you're thinking about self-employment? Where do you start? How can you, but when you are stuck, how can you empower your team? How can you help your strengths help them? How can you improve your work-life balance? How can you shift from that state of being anxious when whatever it is you're needing to do? How do you know what it is that is actually you and not the inner chimp? Unlocking those mental habits is understanding why you're procrastinating. Is it your strengths, or can we find other ways and give you strategies to get over procrastination? How can you really understand how you can work at conflict and not run away from it? How can you speak around your true value and not let others devalue you? How can you become more positive? We can help you do that. So your coach can help you to both sustain the energy and the power and progress that you've got, but also to accelerate that progression for you. And coaches do that by triggering insights and maximizing the energy that you can produce. Really love Eric Schmidt's quote. It really, to me, dives down into the issue. People are not good at seeing themselves as others see them. A coach really, really helps. Everybody needs a coach. Pretty simple, loud and clear. So maybe it's time for you to invest in a coach. And if that's the thing that triggers for you, then why not book a call to discover more? It's really straightforward. There's the QR code, which takes you to our newsletter sign up. Email me directly. That's my mobile. And you can also join us from our next workshop, which is on the 3rd of February, where we'll be exploring wellbeing. Just leaving it there for you for a moment longer so that you can take that QR code and capture my details. And do make sure that you connect on LinkedIn with Dr. Jan Peters.